All right, folks, we're going to get started. I'm just going to preamble, so just find a seat, filter in. I'm Megan Shamus. I'm the CMO of FIDO Alliance. Welcome to our session. We're going to be looking at the 2024 design guidelines from the FIDO Alliance. So I'm going to be quick because we only have like 20, 25 minutes, so we want to get to the crux of the presentation. And of course, there is, as always, VIP seats in the front if anybody would like to VIP the session. So this is the fourth year that we've released research-backed design guidelines to the general public around how to implement passkeys. And I really want to stress this is the FIDO Alliance's commitment to driving adoption of passkeys through making passkeys more usable and consistent user experience for users. What we see is that the user experience is the main driver for passkey adoption. It is easier, it is faster, it is more secure, and it's all around a better experience than what folks are doing today. But there are things like different operating systems, there's different browsers, there's different service providers. And so what we're doing is working to ensure or help make those experiences consistent. What type of language should be used? What type of visual cues should be used? And I'm not sure if most people are aware of how the FIDO Alliance works, but largely the work of the Alliance is driven through our working groups. And the user experience working group, which is also 4 years old, is our most active working group. And this really illustrates not only the FIDO Alliance's commitment, but the commitment of organizations all over the world towards the same goal, which is to make passkeys so usable that adoption is just kind of a no-brainer, which I feel like it is today, but we could always do better. And so I want to welcome these two chairs of the UXWG, Kevin Goldman and Mitchell Gallivan, and just stress these two folks represent 120 individual members, 120 UX experts that have contributed to this work. So please help me welcome Kevin and Mitchell.
Thanks so much, Megan. All right. Let's see, make sure this is okay. There's Megan and Mitchell and I. Team-in approach. Before we get into the team-in approach, it's important, and I'm excited to announce these 2024 design guidelines for passkeys, and it's really because getting the design and the user experience correct is going to help you achieve these incredible business outcomes that passkeys can enable. So they go hand in hand. You got to get the UX right, and you'll get those incredible business outcomes. Some of those outcomes include, dramatically reduced operational costs related to fraud. We heard Air New Zealand talk about that yesterday if you were in this room. Incredible. Also, 200% faster sign-ins. Faster sign-ins can lead to all kinds of great business results. A 400% increase in first try sign-in success. We'll say that again. 400% increase in first try sign-in success. So somebody wants to do something on your website or app, they try to sign in, and that first time, they're much more successful with the passkey. So there's all kinds of business benefits from that. And we're going to get to the guidelines. This is a short presentation, but we have to kind of go through the team-in approach first because it's going to head off a lot of questions that I know you will have if we don't go through this. Megan mentioned it. This work comes from the FIDO Alliance UX working group, and it's comprised of these companies. Megan mentioned 120 people there's about 40 or so companies, geographically diverse. Diverse in the sense that some are platform providers like Google, Apple, and Microsoft. Others are vendors like Cisco or Okta. Others are relying parties, brands who are enabling passkeys on their website. A very diverse group. Another important contributor to this work is a third-party UX research firm that we hired called Blink. FIDO Alliance, each year we hire a third-party UX research firm because we need to see our blind spots. we're so close to this material, it's helpful to have a third party come in and conduct the research, make sure it's unbiased, and that we can see things that maybe we wouldn't see because we're so close to it. And then lastly, and I'm going to say, let's go back. I'm going to say each one of these companies by name, even though you see the logos at the bottom. Hiring that research firm, doing this research each year in FIDO Alliance, we're a nonprofit, it incurs a cost, and these member companies have stepped up to help underwrite the cost of the guidelines. So I'm just going to list them off. 1Password, Dashlane, Google, HID, Trusona, US Bank, and Ubico. And it may sound, please give them a round of applause. It really wouldn't happen without their contributions. All right, last thing before I hand it over to Mitchell, we'll get into the guidelines themselves, is just how do we produce these things. So the UX Working Group, we curated about 270 different moments across the customer journey that can relate to Passkeys. About half of them were for enterprise workforce sign-ins, and the other half were for consumer sign-ins. You see the difference. We then focus on consumer. These guidelines are not for enterprise workforce, even though you can still learn from some of the principles. We focus on the consumer guidelines, and we group those 135 roughly moments into about 7 themes. From there, we just selected 6 for 2024. 6. That's all. So 135 moments we could possibly research across the customer journey for consumers. Related to Passkeys, we researched 6. So we haven't researched everything. And it's more important for us that we go very deep on 6 than go very broad on 30, let's say. So we've gone very deep into the research of these 6 patterns you're going to see. We also just audit well-known passkey deployments, make sure we're seeing what other companies are doing that maybe aren't part of FIDO Alliance, learn from them. Ultimately, we build working prototypes, we build clickable prototypes, and ideate those 120 people from different companies around the world. We think of what's the best passkey experience. And we think we have some good ideas, and then we take it to test. We actually do the research, and we learn a lot. We learned so much that this process is repeated 6 times. So we build, we prototype, that third-party UX research firm comes in and tests them. We learn a bunch, we got some things wrong, we go back and we prototype, and then we test again. Ultimately, we're publishing today what you can find on FIDOalliance.org are 14 UX guidelines that we call patterns. So there are 14 discrete patterns that you can leverage and use for your own company. With that, we'll finally get off to the guidelines themselves. Mitchell, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kevin. I really appreciate it. So the guidelines themselves, you can see the process that we went through to get here. We have some really, really interesting things to share about it, and you can find these online on the FIDO Alliance website. And so something that you can really take away from what we've done is some of the really in-depth user experience research that we've accomplished as part of the FIDO UX Working Group. And so all of the guidelines that you see and are available online and that we'll be describing today are driven and defined by the deep UX research that we've done as that FIDO UX Working Group. We do have 10 UX principles for your team to consider and follow, and these are intended as like 10 core tenets and guidelines. So as your team makes decisions, they can be measured against these principles or considered against these principles, and that can help drive decision-making in a positive, healthy, and user-centered way. We also have 3 content principles, which can help you write your content and content design. And so this will help you and your team create the right messaging for your users and help drive the right kind of content for your user in your UIs. We also have 2 really important patterns to help you get started. And so these are 2 key design patterns that your team can leverage to begin to consider your passkey deployment and your passkey design experience. We also have some optional design patterns. So once you've kind of built on the 2 key patterns, we have optional patterns for you to consider and build upon for your own unique business needs. And the idea here is that with the 2 baseline patterns, you sort of have a great foundation and a great framework to build upon. And then these optional patterns are things that you can take to apply to your unique experience, so you can be confident that the patterns that you're using are not only informed by user experience research and have been deeply defined, but also that we're trying to consider lots of different kinds of use cases and lots of different touch points. And there's tons of resources available on the FIDO Alliance website too. There's a Figma UI kit, there's events, there's different ways to jumpstart your Passkeys experience. And it's not just about like the first time you deploy Passkeys and creating it for the first time and adding it to what you currently have, but you can also consider these as a way to measure or improve or iterate on what you have already established. So as the FIDO UX working group expands and grows and improves the guidelines, so too can you take these and apply them to what you have and sort of synthesize them with your own learnings and come up with an experience that's great for what you have as your business need. And we have a really important pattern that we'll be rolling out called Deprecate SMS OTP. And we really think that this is such an important journey to consider from a UX perspective and from a business perspective because of the tremendous cost savings that can be achieved by sort of transitioning your user base from SMS to passkeys. And here we'll be taking a look at how users feel about this experience. You'll get to see some of the live reactions when we did some user studies. Is there audio?
There sure is.
Easy.
It sounds to me like it's not outputting.
There's my digital code.
Oh.
Click it. It goes in for me, so I don't have to actually type it in.
It's very quiet.
Okay, so passkey is just your biometrics or face or it's whichever one you set. Okay.
It's fine.
Running it with Google, saving it in Google. There you go.
This was actually beneficial. So, very beneficial because it shows me what I expect a passkey is and what it does for me. It saves my account, saves my password. It helps me sign in easier. It helps me sign in with other devices. So I won't have to sign in through it. If I'm using my laptop, I don't have to do that. I don't have to do a long process. I can just do it like I do with my phone.
Ahead and click sign in. And then, okay, so it automatically filled that out. And then I'll hit sign in. And then, yep, I'm waiting for the text to come through. I'm gonna enter that. Oh, yeah, okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, normally I click on it. Sometimes it autofills, but yep, just to get the code. And then I will click continue. And then it's talking about passkeys. So it's asking me if I want to set up passkey, like my fingerprint. And then save to my password manager. Okay, so I probably would create the passkey because I like using that. So create passkey for digital files. And then that comes up. So I'm going to say yes. Use your screen lock. Yeah, sure, why not? Tap confirm. Okay, your passkey was successfully created. To manage it, go to account security. Okay.
I just feel like I'm trying to get a document and I've already, done another mini security step, so I feel comfortable not doing another passkey, and it's an option, so I would just bypass.
Okay, gotta do the verification code. I'm gonna click on that. With passkeys, you don't need complex passwords and codes. No duh. What is a passkey? It's an encrypted digital key you create using your fingerprint, face, or screen lock, I'm glad that explanation's there. Where are passkeys saved? Passkeys are saved to your password manager so you can sign in on other devices. Okay, I guess that answers the question of where it's stored. It's asking me to create a passkey with all this information. Sure, why not? Yeah, why not? Okay, sounds good. Confirm. And all right, that all makes sense.
And so I think this is sort of what we see from users pretty regularly. We do this kind of user testing. We define what we want to do next based off the directional feedback that we get from users. And you can see there that in this particular case, the majority of users saw passkeys as a tremendous benefit. And so we tried out our messaging, we tried out our interaction design, and you can see for the majority of users, it is resonating. Every user is a little bit unique. Every person's a little bit unique, so it's hard to get 100% right. So we're very happy with where we are right now. And of course, I've been co-chairing the FIDO UX working group with Kevin since the end of 2023, but I've been working on this at Google for about almost 3 years. And this is really, really aligned with what we see at Google as well. In fact, I would say they're very, very much aligned. Sometimes they even sort of feed into one another as we're going through this process. And to build on that, one of the key insights that we find is that helping users, or rather asking users about passkeys, maybe to create passkeys during account-related moments is really, really powerful. That's when they're most likely to create a passkey. And that's often during account creation, during authentication, or maybe even during account recovery. So once they've gotten back into their account and everything, they've regained access, asking them to create a passkey at that time can be really successful as well. And what we have found as well is that, of course, as we just demonstrated, post SMS OTP, aka after authentication, that's another really, really great time to ask for a passkey creation moment. And so in the guidelines that are available on the FIDO Alliance website now, we have 8 updated patterns from 2023. So every year we go through and we sort of like maybe reconsider, redefine, re-update what we already have based on new findings, new learnings, new experiences. And the whole idea there is to make sure that what we have is always up to date and always has the latest information. So we're providing you with the best information that we possibly can. We have 6 new patterns, and we think that these are really important patterns like email communications, cross-device sign-in, like using the QR code, deprecating SMS OTP, a really, really great passkey creation touchpoint. Web to app with the same passkeys, which is a really interesting concept for users to think about. Removing passkeys, which is yet another interesting concept in terms of like managing your passkeys, because of course, once a user can create the passkey, maybe sometimes they might like to think about undoing that. And it's less about users wanting that, but more about that feeling of control and feeling of ownership, where they can feel like they're part of the decision-making process, because they are. And managing different types of passkeys, which is another interesting concept as well, be it passkeys on security keys, passkeys in different syncing ecosystems, and so on. And of course, there is new community resources. We have the FIDO UX working group, of course, and if you do have folks from your teams who are kind of UX or product experts, we do, of course, welcome to become part of the FIDO UX working group. We always say that more voices is more better, so everybody is always welcome. And there is, of course, lots of events and things that you can find on the website, so I'd highly recommend checking those out online. Back to Kevin.
All right, we're almost out of time, so we'll just end with a little call to action. We do have 5 minutes. Okay, so we might have time for questions too. Okay, somebody gave the 5-minute sign. Psych! So get involved. There's a great Google group called FIDO Dev. If you're a developer, engineer, there's some great detailed questions on there. Subscribe to that. Attend the Authenticate conference. That's in Carlsbad, California. It's in October. Another thing is we got a 4-part webinar series that is going to start in just a few weeks. So you can scan that QR code. You'll see all those webinars. You can register to attend. They're free. And although they're going to be presented by designers, we're really going to be focused on the business outcomes of passkeys. So non-technical audience is kind of who would be good to attend these webinars, looking for the business outcomes. And then lastly, you're here, you're learning about passkey experiences and design. So just continue the journey, consult with a company from the FIDO Certified Showcase. On the FIDO website, there's a great list of companies that you can trust, you can reach out to, or build a prototype. We have the Figma UI kit, a bunch of resources that Mitchell mentioned. Go in there, use the patterns, and take it from there. If we have time, we can take a question. Okay. All right.
Okay, before we take questions, a couple of housekeeping items. First, we apologize for the snafu, getting everybody out and back into the room. If you're staying for the next session, Debugging FIDO at Scale, it's a master class. Excellent session coming up. If you're staying, please stay in your seats. If, however, you want CPE credits for attending these sessions, please exit the room, get rescanned, come back in, find a seat. And we now have 5 minutes for Q&A. And we'll run around with that in microphones for you. So
I was just going to add, because Kevin and Mitchell are very humble, but we wanted a master class for this, and we didn't get one. And so because of that, we're hosting a 4-part webinar series on this. So if you really want to dig into this, learn about all the patterns, get to know this better, go to the website, register for that, and you can really dig into this a lot further.
See, it worked out even better for you, Max.
Yeah, some questions.
Yeah. Is there something unique about the SMS OTP pattern or exchange point versus email OTP password? Is it a generic at post auth, or is there something specific about SMS OTP that was focused on?
That's a great question. So we looked at, there's all kinds of different existing multi-step authentication that we could have tested. We opted to test and research and go deep on SMS OTP, but a lot of the principles around the pattern, once you go in there and view the pattern and read about it, could be applied to post other methods too, if you use email magic link or other forms of two-step verification.
Question over here.
Yeah. Hey, you know how when you want to change your password, you enter your current password and then you enter your new password twice? I'm just curious, what do you think about, let's say I want to change my passkey. Have you thought about what the UX looks like for that so far?
Yeah, the remove.
So changing a passkey is such an interesting idea, such an interesting question, right? Because a password is sort of like the single key that you can use to get in, and you have to have the same one as the website is expecting. But with a passkey, you can have a ton of different passkeys. So actually what we really encourage is sort of to make passkeys as needed. And if you personally have a strong opinion about removing passkeys, then that's why we always we have recommendations about the settings UI and how you might present that to a user. So instead of exchanging a passkey, we're just create new ones. Don't worry about it.
SMS OTP, during the opt-in process, is it added for security reasons, so that we are double sure before we create the passkey that user went through 2FA? I mean, is it for the 2FA users, or is it are you recommending for even a normal users who just have a non-2FA users also should go through a 2FA SMS verifications before they create passkey?
That's a really interesting question. So if I understand the question right, you're asking if a non-2FA user should go through 2FA to create a passkey.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. So I think that whatever your standard for authenticating a user is, that's the standard that you should apply to creating a passkey. And so what I mean by that is, if you are comfortable getting somebody into an account using a password, then that should be the baseline for which you then create a passkey. And I don't see, but if you require 2FA to authenticate, then that should be the baseline for creating a passkey.
So basically, just to confirm, if you have a 2FA users who are already with the SMS OTP, we need to do the 2FA thing, or either devices remember whatever, we finish the 2FA process and then we enroll them into passkey and then we remove the SMS from the account, basically.
Yes, and so I would say that once the passkey is created, you can stop challenging them with SMS and you can use the passkey. And I would say the caveat is just to make sure that when the user is authenticated, that's the baseline for getting them into using the passkey. And then re-authentication, generally, at least at Google, we sort of just challenge with a password as opposed to the second step. So even if they have 2FA, we kind of block before when they go into settings to create the passkey. And then we just ask them for a password there. So it's sort of it's a little bit conditional.
At the beginning of your presentation, you said you were focusing on the consumer experience instead of the enterprise experience. Can you explain a little bit about that decision?
Yeah, sure. We have to make some hard decisions. We're a nonprofit that has a volunteer group of people, those 120 people, and we can't spread ourselves too thin. So I think one of these years we might focus more on on enterprise. But what we've learned is that a lot of the concepts and messaging and user interface patterns that you find in the consumer world can be applied to the enterprise world as well.
I just want to build on that really quickly. So we also work on Google Workspace, and we can kind of consider Workspace users a subset of consumer users. So often Workspace users will inherit a policy from an admin, and if there is a reason to upgrade, often, like as Kevin said, it will match the consumer messaging, and that often seems to work quite well. But we'll do more specific research, I think, over the next year.
From a governance, risk, and compliance standard, is there any guidance on how long a passkey should remain active, or can we set passkeys to expire after a certain time?
I think that's another really interesting question. I think it would be, again, down to your policy. And so what I mean by that is, if you currently today let a phone number expire or a password expire for whatever reason, then you should apply that same thing to a passkey. But I would probably really think about that and then see the value of that. So, for example, on the Google account, we don't expire passkeys. And I don't think we have any recommendations for that from the FIDO UX working group either. We think that as long as you have access to the credential manager, that suffices to say that you should have access to the passkey and thus the account. So I think it might be on a case-by-case basis.
All right, thank you everyone for attending this session today and for your active engagement with the questions. Please fill out your session surveys in the Identiverse app. It really helps us get good content for you. And again, if you want CPE credits for the next session, Debugging FIDO at Scale, please exit the room to be rescanned. Thank you all. Bye.